Thank you.
Let's get interactive and create a community. Whether it's through live education or maybe through social media, we're always trying to make a personal connection with you, the learner. We're teaching things that we know can be used behind the chair, and it's not about being flashy. It's not about being tricky. It's about building a community.
Well, hello everybody. Andrew Carruthers, Education Director for Sammy. Welcome to the third segment of the day for The Show Must Go On. Holy crap, I am honestly nervous. This whole thing started when we first started to just have a conversation around the fact that most likely the fall shows or the spring shows were going to get canceled. So of course, as a team, we came together and we said, what are we going to do? Because we just can't be okay with the fact that we're not going to do hair shows the entire way through the spring. So the team got together and we decided, you know what? Well, let's do this. Let's have a digital hair show. And it started out with just this idea that, yeah, we'll get together, like do some Facebook Live stuff, be nice and casual. And then our friends from the PBA, our friends from Pivot Point, our friends from Redken, our friends from Cosmetologist Chicago, they all started to catch on to it. And next thing you know, there were over 12,000 of you that registered for this thing. So my heart is honestly like, boom, boom, boom. So thank you guys so much for being here. It means so much to us. This is such a bizarre time that we're going through right now, but I think we're going to find that it pushes us to do some things differently. Look at what an incredible connection we can create with each other through this digital world that we have at our fingertips. So please stay interactive. My beautiful wife, Michelle, is over at the computer running this for me this after for this segment. She's gonna try and keep up with your questions. They come flying through that screen at 1 billion miles per hour, so we might miss a few, but we're gonna try our best. Today, we are doing Gentleman's Artistry. Look at my handsome friend here. I love these mannequins with the beards. They're so nice and fluffy. But what we really want to focus on today is some really fundamental, foundational information around men's haircutting. We're going to keep it fairly simple, but we are going to look at things that are a little longer, softer with the haircutting, and we'll talk about different tools, especially as far as shear over comb versus clipper over comb, clippers with guards. Why do you choose one of the over the other? But primarily, we're going to focus on shear over comb. Now, through every segment, we are going to do some giveaways. Today, you have a chance to win an Artist Series comb set. And I'll talk a little bit more about these combs. This is the Sammy Artist Series comb set. You'll also be eligible to win Redken's new product line. It's their Redken Extreme Bleach Recovery line. I've been actually playing with it on the mannequin heads. And
let's get interactive.
That's okay. Michelle's still figuring out the computer software. So, hey, there you go. You got it, baby doll. So you're going to win the comb set, the VIP Cosmetologist Chicago membership, which will give you entry into next year's ABS 2019 or 2021 show. Wow. And the Bleach Recovery Kit. I think I said all that stuff. So text the code contest to the number that's up on the screen. By the end of this segment, we'll have our winner, and I'll announce that at the end for all of you guys. Cool? So let's jump into the haircut. Now, one of the things that is definitely probably happening all over America and all over the world right now are guys are growing their hair out. Look at the neck beard I'm growing. Not good, right? But so lots of our guys that traditionally have been super tight crop sort of haircuts, we've already started to see those guys shift towards some softer looks. I would say that especially after this time in quarantine where they're not able to get haircuts, I would guess we're going to have a lot of guys coming back into the salon going, you know, maybe I actually am okay with some longer hair. So that's why we chose something today to do with you guys that's going to be a little bit longer of a shape. So as you can see, it's nice and tapered, pretty tight through the perimeter. We work into some length and texture through that middle area, break down the head shape for you here, and then through the top, just some texture and movement. And the top can definitely be worn more like I wear my top, more brushed forward with some texture, or we can kind of kick it back. For the interest of time, here's Jekyll. Well, here's Hyde. So I did not finish this side of the haircut because I only have 45 minutes with you. I probably even talked for like 10 because I tend to jabbermouth. But basically, we want to look at the head in 3 different areas. And I think this is something that's really, really key when we're looking at men's hairdressing. And actually, it's not even just men's hairdressing because we're even starting to see definitely a group of females wearing this type of haircut as well, gender neutral people wearing these types of haircuts. So it's not even necessarily men's haircutting anymore, it's just short haircutting. So we're going to start first with the blue area through here. This is area 1. So this all lives quite a bit below that vertical transition of the head. Then we have the green area, which is going to be area 2. This is a super consequential area when it comes to these very short haircuts because it really dictates that overall silhouette, how it transitions into the top of the head. Then, of course, we have area 3, which is going to be the top of the head. So those are the areas we'll work through. If the hair is long enough, it's very beneficial for you to actually part those sections. So we're going to just give a little bit of dampness to the hair just with the continuous mist spray bottle. He's already been shampooed and conditioned. He has just a little bit of One United, Redken's One United in there. It's this product here. It's something that we like quite a bit of mannequin heads because it just kind of keeps the hair soft and makes the partings easy to work with. So that first area, that blue area, area number 1, really we're looking for everything that lives below that vertical transition of the head. So when we talk about the vertical transition, if I take a comb and I place it vertically on the head, you can see there's a point that that comb starts to lift up off of the head. That point is that transition area. That's that point that the head stops going kind of this way or straight up and down, and it starts to curve up and away. So that's that first point that you want to part off. And as you can see, I have that parted off here on his side. So I've already cut this about 2/3 of the way around. I stopped about here, about halfway across the back. We're going to take a clip, throw that at the camera, and then just place the clip into the hair. This is a handle comb. Really dig these handle combs for control when we're cutting longer hair like this because one of the principles that I was taught by Kurt Kiefner, who was one of the guys that helped to start American Crew back in the day, he taught us to work with our comb in a way that whatever goes up must come back down. So what that means is if we're doing shear over comb, what ends up happening pretty often is we get to a certain point and we'll just stop and we'll kind of take our comb out. What will happen is right where you take the comb out, the hair is kind of pushed to the side or something. At that point, if I re-enter and try and grab that hair, it could push out of the comb. So to avoid that, we always go up, flip the comb, bring it back down. What goes up must come down. So this is actually something, especially for our school students out there, because we know that we have some of our partner schools, our Zambia partner schools out there watching. If you are one of those, thank you, and thanks for watching. This is something we would highly encourage you practice as a skills and drills sort of practice, just to get muscle memory, is just what goes up must come down. The other thing about shear over comb is the comb is what's really important here. So what I'm creating with the comb is a graduated cutting line. So what the comb is doing, guys, is the comb is creating that cutting surface that goes from short at the bottom to longer towards that transition area. This is the most important piece. This just removes the hair. This tells this what to do. So Kurt also had this really cool visual that he would give us. He would say, create a clear glass surface, creating the line that you want to create in the haircut in your mind. Then the comb rides along that surface. So if I want this profile to go short to long like this, my comb, I visualize just allowing that comb to ride along that type of angle on the surface, then the shear just follows along and removes the hair. Now, one of the big differences between shear over comb and clippers, this can never move as fast as that. There's a benefit to that, softness. Because with shear over comb, I'm never going to quite hit the hair the exact same. And the shear is moving so slow that it's not going to give me a hard edge. So if a guest says, hey, I would like a short haircut that has a softer finish to it, that's when shear over comb really becomes most beneficial to them. If they say, I want a really rigid type of line, if they show you a picture of something that looks like super kind of classic barber shop with really strong lines to it, that's when maybe we would grab the clipper and do more clipper over comb. But if you're doing clipper over comb, it's the exact same principle. All this is doing is removing hair. This is telling this what to do. I hope that makes sense. If that makes sense, say makes sense in the comments. As we come around the ear, this can be a pretty challenging place. These pivot point mannequins, they do have a little bit of flexibility on the ear, but they still don't move much. So, Tabitha, you're asking about how to work with cowlicks. I'll definitely talk about that in just a moment. So here around the ear, what I would typically do is take that ear, fold it forward, bring this comb in just behind, and work kind of vertically at that point, because it's hard right there for my right-handed people out there. On the left side of the client, it gets really hard to get in there, right? It's not as hard over here because I can work with the tip of the comb right there. I can work backhand in behind the ear. But on this side, what ends up happening is can't get in there. So that's where a lot of times switch to more of a vertical comb. We'll fold that ear forward, just create more of a taper with the angle of the comb and work that way. That's an option. Then again, here as we get to the top of the ear, bring the comb in. Always make sure you're starting all the way down here at the perimeter and working short to long. We're trying to preserve quite a bit of length at the top, so the angle of the comb is really key. And you'll notice I do have his head tilted away from me slightly. That helps to build that graduation. If his head is straight up and down, the challenge I sometimes run into is then I really feel like I have to angle that comb way back, and I'm kind of feeling like I'm in the Matrix. That look cool.
No.
No, Michelle's just telling me. Weirdo. Anyway, so by tilting the head slightly over, I can actually help to create that graduated cutting line. So back to the question on cowlicks real quick. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the top, but a lot of it has to do with texture and density and the direction of the cowlick. And it's gonna be a combination of enough texturizing into that cowlick to soften it and make it pliable for product and blow drying techniques without getting too far. Because if you get in there and you start texturizing it too much, you could actually make it its own worse. So it's a little bit of a balancing act. Benji's asking, how does that work with flat spots in the head? That's a fantastic question. And that's why this is really beneficial, Benji, because the way that I can work with that flat spot is I kind of ignore that flat spot with the shape of the comb, and I create almost this exterior. Let's see, how do I explain that? Exterior silhouette that basically makes the flat spot where it's not important, because here's the thing is if you're doing clippers with guards, a lot of times what happens with clippers with guards is we place that guard against the head, we have the guard flat against the head, and we ride against it, and that guard is basically conforming to every little nuance within the shape of the head. So if you have someone that has a lot of different kind of textures moving around the head, sometimes it's really it's really beneficial to switch to more of a shear or clipper over comb, because that way, even if this flattens out right here, I'm still creating an external or silhouette shape based on what my comb is doing. So hope that helps. Now, here's the thing, guys. I want to be hyper sensitive with you about the topic of sales, because the reality is part of the reason we're all here together is because we know a lot of you are out of work right now. So we wanted to do some sales this weekend that helped us support you in a way that we felt was beneficial to you. So our friends at Pivot Point are doing a promotion this weekend, 15% off mannequin heads, 20% off stands. So to get that, just go to pivotpoint.com or pivotpointshop.com. You have to log in and enter the affiliate code SVED. Michelle's going to find that banner for us here in a second, and that's in there. So pivotpoint.com. Like I said, make sure you log in. You have to create an account so that you can get this discount, but it's SVED. We felt this would be a good sale for you because we know that you have time to practice right now. So for those of you that do have some finances available to get some mannequin heads to practice, hopefully that'll be beneficial to you. We also are doing a promotion on our website for 40% off pretty much everything on the website. It's about as low as we could possibly bring the tool prices. And it's kind of the same idea as if you have the ability to purchase tools right now, we wanted to make it as affordable as possible. But we also wanted to have it benefit our community. So we're taking 10% of all sales and we're donating it to the Professional Beauty Association's COVID-19 Relief Fund. So if you do purchase something, know that you're also making a 10% donation to your friends at the Pro Beauty Association to the COVID-19 Relief Fund. And if you're someone that needs those funds, you can go to probeauty.com. The applications are available for that fund. All right, so as we get over top of the ear, again, we kind of have to dig a little bit. So sometimes I'll take the shear, rest it underneath the hair, get the angle, and then start to work. Now, here's the thing. As you're moving up the head, the thing you want to be careful of is not stopping. Because the other thing that we'll see a lot of times with shear or comb is this. They kind of come in, place their comb, stop, cut. Come in, place the comb, stop, cut. place the comb, stop, cut. If you're going through that process, the challenge you're going to face is you're creating 3 hard lines now. And you're creating kind of little shells that you're going to have to try and copy back out. So what you want to try and develop is a really smooth, fluid movement. Get my comb in there. That starts all the way at the bottom. Start here. See how the shear starts to move. Move that shear as fast as you can possibly open and close it. Keep that comb moving nice and slow, and don't stop moving until you're completely out of the hair. So again, my big mentor with men's haircutting for Kiefner, he would say click, click before. So you would kind of like rev up your shear, get it moving, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And then he would say click, click after. So what he was saying is you just kind of keep cutting for 2 or 3 cuts, even after all the hair is dropped out of your shear. That'll guarantee that you do not create an extra little shelf up here. You're with me? But I'm with you in the comments, please. How we doing, Michelle? Okay, we got a question here. Would you use this technique on curly hair? Absolutely, yes, Julie. So the only texture that sometimes can be a little challenging with this is actually like full-on kinky curls where it spirals. Because what you'll find sometimes is if the curls are so small and tight, even with short hair, it can kind of end up with your comb. So that can be a little challenging sometimes, but for the most part, even with curly hair, like you can see I have curly hair, but the curl doesn't really start to take over until we get a tiny bit of length on the hair, so it does work pretty well for that too. Ooh, love this one. I think it's Kara. Kara, I'm glad you asked, because this is one of my favorite things personally to do. So this is our reversible blending shear, and you'll see, let me see if I can get a nice close-up on that. Yep. Okay, so you'll see the teeth are very, very close together. So that makes this one of my favorite shears for shear over comb, because when we do shear over comb with a blending shear, we have to go over it maybe 1 pass, maybe a 2nd pass, and we'll do this at the end just to adjust it as well. But the great thing is when you're removing length with a blending shear, you leave such a soft, soft finish to the hair. So this is actually one of my favorite techniques. I'm glad you brought it up, Kara. And I'll use that pretty often for detailing up the sides. Before we go into the transition area, we feel like it's great to get your bottom pretty much completely finished too. So I'm not going to move on until I feel like this is looking really great, because that's the other thing you see really often within men's haircuts is people get lost within their haircuts, and it's mainly because they're hopping and jumping around. So we would encourage you to complete area 1 before moving to area 2. So we're going to grab now the detailing comb, and if you win the Artist Series comb set, you're going to have this little baby. This is fun because you can just grab such detailed little places. And kind of back to Kara's question, I love using the blending shear to work around the ears and to detail the hairline, because it keeps things just super, super soft. So even up here from the ear. Little tip with the ear, as you're working around the sideburn here, come to the tip of the ear, right where the skin starts to detach, and the ear starts to fold down. That's where you want to bring that little corner to. Don't look at mine because I need a haircut really bad. But that's where we want you to go to, is just to right to that point. Then stop there, take the ear, fold it forward. Well, I'll just show you mine. Fold it forward, and then work from the back forward to connect to that point that you stopped at right in front of the ear. That will keep you from whitewalling the client, which is one of my personal biggest pet peeves, because I hate seeing skin over top of my ear, because I don't go so short on my sides that it exposes that skin. So a lot of times what people do then is they grab the trimmer and they go way up above my ear. Not good. Right here along the front hairline, This is a little detail that not a lot of people do, and it's super, super important because the natural head shape starts to actually curve forward slightly, right on that. It's actually called the sphenoid, the sphenoid bone. It starts to curve forward slightly there. So right here, what ends up happening is you leave this kind of corner of weight right where the head shape starts to transition. So if you take the detailing cone and you over direct the hair forward towards the face, take that little corner off that you see right there. What that does is it creates a really nice transition into the face, and it doesn't build up into a big chunk of the front corner there. Okay, let me bring that actually closer. There we go. So again, just take all that hair, over direct it forward, and just take the corner off. Your clients that have short hair will love you for that little detail. All right. I think we're close enough now. If I wanted to, I could always come back down here to the nape and use the detailing cone to even get just a little bit tighter. That's the nice benefit of having the multiple different combs. Sometimes what we see even with longer hair cutting is people kind of have their favorite comb, their favorite shear, and they just use the same tools for every single process. And the challenge with that is just that it's like if a plumber came to my house and he just had one wrench, I'd be like, dude, what are you doing? I probably wouldn't trust that plumber too much, and he'd probably have to work pretty hard. All right, we got Michael Ryan asking, when would you transition from beard to hair? Great question. Typically, you're going to see a change in the texture of the hair. Here, we'll just use mine. So you can see pretty much all the way to about there, it's very much head hair. I don't know the technical terms, I don't remember those. So to about there, it's very much that kind of softer hair that lives up here. Right around here, you'll see that there's actually a texture and color change. So that's the transition point from the beard hair into the hair above it. So that's where I typically try to create that transition from the beard. Good question. Michelle, I don't have anything close that I can see time. Can you give me a time check?
10:42.
Okay. All right, how are we doing so far, y'all? You guys having a good time? Awesome. Now we're going to start to transition into area 2. Like I mentioned, this is such a crucial part to short haircuts because, well, I'm using myself as an example pretty often, but so with my head shape, the sides are pretty straight up and down. They're pretty flat. But what happens right here at my transition, my head kind of goes like this. So this transition truly makes or breaks my haircut. Because the side, you can fade it, you can cut it pretty even, you can kind of do whatever you want through my sides. But if you take the weight out of my corners and don't give me a little bit of fullness in there, I start looking like an egghead. I start looking like a 90s faux hawk. People don't want the 90s faux hawk. So that transition is super important. Now, if I have a super wide kind of blocky head shape, maybe I want to kind of crop that down a little more. And it's all about creating balance within the head shape. So it's not one size fits all. You have to tailor this to each individual guest. Speaking of the Chicago ABS show, one year I was talking to, I wish I remembered this person's name because I talk about her all the time, but it's a men's only salon, or I wouldn't say it's a men's only salon, but she called it a men's salon. This was like 4 or 5 years ago that I met her. And they had this thing about consultations that I thought was so incredibly cool. She said that when men sit down in their chair, they had a challenge, which is that her staff was asking questions like, "What do you want to do today?" Which we agree that that's a very ineffective consultation question. What do you want to do today? Because especially if they haven't had an experience in like a salon that actually is going to give them a great consultation, they may have had that question asked many times before, and they just have a standard answer. They kind of don't even know what their options are. So she made a rule with her staff that the first thing that her staff was supposed to do when a guest sat in their chair was to start out with just making recommendations about what they saw, which I was like, that's pretty bold. Someone sits in your chair, you start kind of just having a conversation, and instead of even saying like, hey, tell me about your hair, what do you like, what do you not like, she wanted them to just really start out with, cool, so here's what I am seeing about your hair. You have this kind of texture, I can see this, and kind of give them what your observations are, and then say, this is what I would suggest we would do with your hair today. Would that be something you'd be interested in? And she said the response was so positive because by becoming a professional and actually looking at head shape, looking at texture, balance, and all those things, we have the ability to see things that our clients don't see. And think about having that kind of conversation with your client, actually taking that role of, hey, I'm the professional here, so I'm going to give you what I think could be most beneficial to you. Just an idea, but I thought it was pretty cool. So the transition is right at that point that the top of the head starts to now curve and change and go downward. So that's that next part. So right here, in that green area. Okay. Like I said, I've already done this on the right side, so we're going to start on the left. I'm going to switch to a swivel shear because if you just watched Jesse Linares in our last segment, which if you have, dude, he's the best, right? It's so fun. But if you watched him, he has this little thing that he does where he takes his thumb out, puts it on the other side, and cuts like this. Well, with a swivel shear, we don't have that issue. We can actually just do it ourselves. Because when we're working vertically through this transition, so we're going to take vertical sections, and we're going to keep the finger angle very vertical here, even slightly diagonal to keep that length. Get back to my guide here. Vertical section. As we start to take that vertical section, bring our finger angle slightly diagonal to keep that length. What ends up happening if my thumb is stuck like this, I end up in this kind of position. That is not good for your body. So instead, what we can do is we can take that shear, let the shear do the work. Now we get into a position that is much more ergonomically beneficial because my shoulder is down, my elbow is down, just makes for something that's a lot more comfortable.
So we're getting multiple questions regarding the tools that you're using and including the stand.
Oh, great. Okay, cool. Well, the stand is the pivot point. I'm sorry, I can't remember the stand. It's their most heavy duty stand. These things are bulletproof. I've traveled all over the country with this stand. With that affiliate code, SVET, with that affiliate code, you get 20% off the stands and actually 15% off the mannequin heads. So that's pretty cool. This particular shear that I'm using is our Signature Series 6-inch swivel shear, which is also on sale this weekend, 40% off. Like I said, I want to be really cautious about over talking too much about sales with you guys because, hey, look, we know that a lot of you are out of work right now. Maybe multiple people within your family are out of work. So we're absolutely sensitive to the fact that right now probably isn't the time where people are really looking to spend lots of money. We do have payment plans if that helps you in any way. And we did that 40% off just so that we could make sure that we can offer you tools if you're looking for them at the most affordable price we can make it. Plus, we're getting 10% of all sales are going to the PDA, not the disaster relief, I'm sorry, the COVID-19 relief fund. They converted their disaster relief fund into the COVID-19 relief fund because there's a lot of us that need help out there. The comb is our Artist Series handle comb. Definitely my personal favorite, probably because I helped design it. So look at my finger angle. See how I'm creating that diagonal, and it's creating a nice angle with the head shape to create that weight in the corner to help preserve that density. And with each section, after you cut, you just want to lay it back down into place. So again, diagonal finger angle, work to my guide. Now sometimes what I find happens here, because the head shape is kind of curving up and around, what sometimes ends up happening is I'll take my section. Yeah, this is perfect. This is exactly what I'm going to show you. So there's my length from the bottom. Let me get it a little closer here for you. There we go. So look closely here. There's my length from the bottom, and behind, there's my guide. So actually the guide from behind isn't perfectly matching up with where I need to connect to my length at the bottom. And it's because the shortness is kind of coming up higher and higher. These are the things that sometimes we don't have a ton of control over without super complicated sectioning and some processes with kind of rotating sections. And honestly, guys, I used to be into that kind of stuff, but I realized that that's just not the way that most of us do hair. So I really simplified a lot of my approach. Now, yes, I am creating some maybe little tiny disconnections in here. Those things are very, very easy to refine afterwards, though. So I'm not super worried about it. I used to be super worried about that kind of stuff. I used to get really bent out of shape about it. But in reality, those are the kinds of things that are going to happen as we work through the haircut. How much time do I have left, Michelle? It's a 45-minute segment. There's a counter up there.
7 minutes.
7 minutes. Wow. Okay. So right here where this recession area is, we're going to overdirect slightly back so that we can preserve that length. If in doubt, preserve the length, because if you're not sure what you're going to do in the front, leave yourself that length by over-directing back. As we go into the top now, I want to make sure I get this finished for you. As we go into the top, we're just going to, through the crown, we'll take pie-shaped sections. We'll elevate that section to the head shape. Now we're just going to follow the head shape. I'm going to switch shears again. This is our Streamline Series 6 1/4 inch shear. I like this for point cutting because it's got enough length to it without being kind of a beast. I'm going to pretty deep point cut this because I want to keep some deeper texture on the top. Tom should be texting you the name of the winner.
Yes.
Okay. Because we'll want that. And I can go a little over 45 minutes. That's why we built a little bit of time in. So as long as you guys are cool with it, I am. So we continue to rotate around the head with these pie-shaped sections. No over direction back at this point because I'm not trying to build length towards the face through the crown area here. So now we're in that top section, that area 3, the red area on top. I already completed the right hand side. We're just going to the left hand side. Most often you're not going to be working with this much length on top. Well, actually maybe you will be after this whole thing. You're gonna have some clients coming back in. They're gonna look like Jesus. But you can lop some of that excess length off, so it's a little easier for you to point cut. Elevation is 90 degrees to the surface of the head. If you're right pin trained, you know that is planes to the head. This again, working vertical sections. As we get to the front, we will introduce a little bit of over direction back, again, just to preserve that length. Because if we want to keep the hair more pulled back, that little extra length can be beneficial to us. If we want to wear it more forward, like I'm wearing it, then we can always pull that hair back forward. But if we don't have the length, then we don't have the length. So we feel like it's a great idea to preserve that length first, then readjust if you need to. All right, last section here. We'll direct that back. And that's the top. Now from here, now it's time for styling and finishing. For the most part, I like to kind of try and work with air drying if possible. Mainly just because we want to keep our styling in relationship to what they're going to do at home. So if they're not really the kind of person that is going to do a lot of blow drying and styling at home, if we do that in the salon, we're setting them up for unrealistic expectations of what their hair should look like. Plus, we're not going to detail to how their hair is going to look. So very often as we're cutting, I'm just kind of massaging and moving the hair. And maybe we'll hit it with the blow dryer a little bit just to kind of put some shape into it, something like that. But really, we want to work with their natural texture and natural movement as much as possible. Now, if they have a lot of texture and natural movement, they bring us a picture of someone that has perfectly stick straight hair, that's a whole different story, right? So one of the final steps I would suggest on a haircut like this is to add some texture and separation through the top of the head. We'll do that with slide cutting shear. This one's a blast. And actually, I get to give one of these away, I think, on my second haircut tomorrow. I can't remember. It's my texturizing and detailing segment, but I'll get to give one of these away, which will be awesome.
You're getting a couple of questions regarding how to deal with recession.
Oh, yes. Okay, great. Let's talk about recession. I'm totally going to go over it, but that's okay because we have some space between me and Jesse's next segment, so we'll be okay. So let's definitely talk about recession because I've got one hiding in here too. Oh God, get that, go down. So a couple things about receding hairlines. There are things that we can do to help to balance a recession, but it's very apparent when you're trying to cover it up. Then it looks like a comb over. So again, we want to leave that length there at first because that is the length that, especially if he's going to wear it forward, can fill in that little corner. So that's what my hairdresser does. We leave a little bit of length there. But what ends up happening is if we leave all that length and weight there, it kind of turns into this flap. So there's a really careful balance between those two. If they're going to wear their hair up, right, we want to leave a little bit of length to kind of drop in there. So it's not just all up. Because honestly, guys, if you have a really big recession and all of the hair on the top is straight up, it makes it pretty obvious. So if I had clients that wanted to have the front pop up, but still have that recession, I would typically try to do more of this kind of styling option, where from the back, the hair is actually kind of coming more forward, and it's just that front that's popping out. Then you have that ability to have some of these little pieces fall in there and just kind of just camouflage a little bit. But if the hair is going to be worn forward, which let's go that direction. Let's talk about wearing it forward. So if we're going to wear it forward, it's really about creating perimeter and detailing to the perimeter. So for his, let's say we're gonna leave him some length here. Take that slide cutting shear and just kind of chew off the length a bit. Leave that length to fill in the recession. Now, is there a point that it's probably too far gone? Potentially, yes. There are other options once you get to that point, which we won't talk about today. But let's say we want to kind of give him some length there in the front. Let's do one. So the first thing is to create some primitive length. Now, we have seen some of the British barbers do some really cool haircuts where, they almost give them like a Dumb and Dumber kind of bang. They'll just kind of laser line that front edge in. For most of us that aren't like super svelte and tough looking and really cool, that's probably not going to work so well for us. So we feel like if we're wearing it forward, most of the time we're looking for more of a textured edge to it. Then we start to detail to the densities. Because a lot of times what will happen is you'll have really, really thick, bulky hair through that front. And again, we can just use that slide cutting shear to just channel cut through. If I'm not looking to create big statements of texture, then I'm going to keep the shear pretty parallel to the hair. If I want to actually create separation, then I'll take the shear more diagonal to the hair. That's something that we'll actually talk about in that texturizing and detailing class tomorrow. So you won't want to miss that. And even here, where the recession is, a lot of times we're afraid to cut into that, but if we don't, it's not going to match the texture and density of the rest of the haircut. So it's kind of like extensions. Very often we see extensions look really kind of thick and heavy because it's like, well, we just put all this time putting extensions into the hair. We don't want to cut into them. We get scared to cut into them. But you just have to take a step back and look at the texture and density and get some balance. Excuse me, sir, you've got a bunch of hair in your beard. That's disgusting. We won't get into beard cutting today. It's actually pretty hard to explain. Okay, one more question here. One client with a strong widow's peak, usually razor from the front center of the hairline. Usually a razor from the front center of the hair. So Cindy, I'm not 100% sure. I'm guessing you mean that are you actually taking the widow's peak up with the razor? If you're actually cutting it with the razor, so I'll just answer it from that point of view because I'm not quite sure, but there is definitely barbers and hairdressers that will synthetically put in a hairline. Me personally, I don't love it because within a week, that already creates a shadow. I mean, honestly, within a couple of days, especially if it's dark hair and light skin, you see that shadowing that happens. If there was a strong widow's peak, my suggestion would be looking at something where the hair is going forward more, and you could take some of the density out of the widow's peak without actually cutting it off. I think that might be a little bit more wearable, a little bit more, get some longevity so that they didn't feel like they had to come back in the salon every couple days to get a touch-up. But that could really be just based on clientele too, because I know plenty of guys that are super happy to go to the barber every single week for their just for a lineup. I don't have the time or energy to do that, so I want my hairlines to stay more natural. So it's just personal preference. Cool. So just quick review, and then we'll wrap this up. First thing we would highly recommend is getting into this habit of really working with these 3 areas. And most short haircuts can be broken down this way. You have area number 1, which is more of that vertical surface, right up to what we call the vertical transition. Some of you might call that the parietal ridge. Area number 2 is that transition area. Again, something that's super, super essential to make sure that we get the right shape. It's all about just creating balance. So look at your desired, excuse me, look at your desired silhouette to the overall hair shape. Oh my gosh. Look at your overall silhouette that you're desiring to have, and then look at the underlying head shape that's beneath that. That's going to tell you, do you lean in those corners? Do you build corners? Or do you just keep it more straight up and down? And of course, you transition in area number 3, which is the top of the head. From there, it's all about texturizing and detailing. So hopefully you got a couple things that are going to be able to benefit you. I think we have a big winner for our package of the Artist Series foam set, the Extreme Bleach Recovery package from Redken, and the VIP membership to Cosmetologist Chicago, which means you get all 3 days of the ABS show next year for free. And the winner for this one is Sherry Fugate from Virginia. Yay! Congratulations, Sherry. Super stoked for you guys. Once again, thank you guys so much for being a part of this weekend. This truly is a project for you. This is about Zambia as a company, as a community, just supporting you through education, inspiration. Please know we are here for you. We're trying to have fun today. We're trying to keep things light and keep things educational. In the end, we know that some of you are at home and having a rough time. We want you to know that we're here for you in that space too. Love you guys. We want you to be safe. We want you to be happy, healthy, and successful. So please use this time to your advantage to learn, to grow, to become greater hairdressers. We'll see you on the next segment for our buddy, Jesse Linares. Peace out.
And broadcast.
Yep, and broadcast.